Let's get started. This office hours is being presented by Mike. Mike, you're sharing your screen, so I'm kind of getting this double me back thing going.
Yeah,
But
it's weird that Teams shows you this window when Zoom does not.
yeah, you got to just kind of poke that out of the way. But regardless, let's get started. This is all about themes, eh?
Yeah, so it's something that's come up more recently with us. We've started getting a lot of conversion projects again of people um, jumping up from older versions of FileMaker, or we're going in and checking out their file, and it looks like a file that was built 20 years ago and hasn't really changed. That and with the advent of Clara Studio, people are paying a little more attention to themes now because everything's kind of headed in that web app centric sort of direction. So I figured it was a good time to spend half an hour or a bit more talking about themes. So we're going to jump in and dive in. So
Awesome.
today's checklist, which I find myself just writing markdown checklists more recently rather than trying to put slides together. I'm This is how I work well, so this is what I do. So let's cover these four key theme points today. Why does using themes matter? What should you know about themes? Where can you draw some inspiration from for other themes, other development platforms that use themes as well, and what can we learn from those? And then some tips with how you use themes in FileMaker. And we'll include a quick demo as we go through all of this list. So let's start off with, why do using themes matter? Well, the first thing is time savings. Obviously, if you have a theme that allows you to use the same style across all of your different layouts, then it becomes faster to build layouts and then pick a style rather than having to remember that, this style of a button is this specific color, this specific font, this specific size, this specific rounding, padding, all of that stuff. There's hundreds of minute little settings for each object in your file that you can style. So a theme offers you time savings for development, um, not just developing new files, but also in converting your legacy files with a fresh new look as well. And that fresh new look brings us to our next point, which is user experience or UX improvements. Now, um, everybody's filled out online forms. Some people have the bad habit of, getting too comfortable with their FileMaker file. Maybe you've had a FileMaker file that somebody in your office has used for 15 or 20 years, and it's always looked the same, and that person knows very well how to use that. So they're not open to the idea of changing that. But let's say that person is now reaching retirement age, and you now have to train a new person, and maybe it's a younger person whose experience with custom software is only online, through other web-based apps. So now your FileMaker interface is suddenly a hurdle. Your user experience is a hurdle because you have to spend more time training somebody for your legacy interface. So improving your user experience, yes, it puts people that have used your system for a long time in unfamiliar territory, but overall, for the longevity of your custom software, it's a good idea to do that because it blends well with more modern things, and it can lead to situations where you don't have to explain your software. You don't have to train anybody on it. They know how to use it. They can go to a home screen, know what section of the day of the app they're going to, and then when they get there, they understand that this is a list view, and I click on this button to go to the detail view and navigate back and forth because everything's standardized. So all of those UX improvements breed consistency, which is your system looking the same across the whole file. So maybe over over the course of the many years you've had a FileMaker app, you've had different developers in there that all have their own style, or you've had version 1, version 2 of the system, or version 3 or version 4, each which has had its own kind of design. That's some inconsistency. So using themes makes it very easy for you to apply a consistent design across all of your layouts and all of your apps. And that's especially important for larger companies, or maybe you come from a company that has a design guideline that all software in your company should adhere by. So keeping things consistent is easy with themes. Compatibility is a big one, and it's becoming even bigger the more and more that the FileMaker platform switches over to web-based things, switches over to things like Linux servers, improving WebDirect, moving things to Clara Studio. Compatibility is a huge thing, and for the longest time, a lot of people have been just fine using the classic theme in FileMaker. Classic is a theme that was essentially introduced when themes were introduced to handle everything that wasn't a theme before. So any layout that ever existed in FileMaker up until version 12, when themes were introduced, is a classic theme. So the classic theme itself isn't really a theme; it's just a catch-all, a dump bucket for anything that doesn't have a style. So the classic theme was officially deprecated a few versions ago, a few years ago. So it's no longer like I can no longer create a new layout with the classic theme. So any file that I go into as a developer and I see a classic theme in there, I know that immediately that app hasn't been maintained with proper UX and theme compatibility and everything we look for. So there is also another entire generation of themes. So themes have been in FileMaker for so long now that the original set of themes that were introduced are now no longer compatible. So I'm talking about things like sand, the sand theme, and meadow and ocean. Um, those have all been kind of paired out over the lifetime of the platform. And Claris has introduced very simple, very streamlined themes as a good starting point that you can build custom themes on top of. So the main bread and butter theme that Claris uses now is a theme called Apex Blue. And the main mobile theme that they use is a theme called Universal Touch. And I'll talk about those two themes a little bit later. So compatibility is important because if you want to take your app and you want to put it online and host it with WebDirect, sometimes incompatible themes can lead to very weird behavior online because the WebDirect service can't translate some of those parts of the classic theme. So you might come to a layout and half of your buttons are missing because they're not because it's using the classic theme. So for the best compatibility with the FileMaker platform, you definitely want to maintain and use some themes. Along with compatibility, that performance is also a hit there. When you think about what a theme is overall, if I go and look at a theme, every single object on my layout has some sort of style attached to it, whether it's the font size or the border or the background color. Um, there's something underneath there called CSS, which is a cascading style sheet. And that holds all of the styles for all the different objects on my page. Now, on a themed layout, one that uses a more modern theme, you're going to have a number of base styles that have very simple, consistent CSS rules are on them. And that doesn't take up a lot of space. But if I start to customize things, change the background color here, or change the font here, and then I do that hundreds of times on my layout, I suddenly start to build that style sheet to where it has thousands of more lines of rules on it. And that affects things like loading time in WebDirect, where it has to render that style sheet for the user side to load. You'll start to see a few seconds here or there of loading time when you've heavily customized or themed a layout. And again, with couple that with compatibility, that becomes a big issue, especially for things like WebDirect systems or FileMaker Go systems that are being usually delivered remotely. And then lastly, if you're not using themes, or if you don't know how to use themes, or you've kind of just reverted to copying and pasting what you've used in the past, you won't have the ability to work with a separate UI or UX designer. And this is something that we even don't do all the time, but on much larger projects, things that are in the hundreds of hours, or things where we're doing kind of a hybrid system where it's part on the web and part in FileMaker Pro. Um, you really want to get into um, adding a, UI UX designer to your team, because when they use tools to draw what it is you're going to build, it really helps you think about and conceptualize how things are laid out on a FileMaker layout, how all the different pieces fit and flow together, and when does it become too much? Like it's very easy in FileMaker to try to do too much on one layout, have too many portals, have too many buttons, have too many fields for record data. So maybe you have a list view, and really all that user needs to see on that list view is something like company name, city, state, zip, and maybe that's all. But your layout has company name, primary contact name, primary contact email address, phone number, et cetera, et cetera. And suddenly you have a list view that has 30 fields on it, only of which 3 are being used for people to navigate, pick a company, and go to the detail view. So a UX designer is going to look at those types of things and identify where those can be streamlined. And if you're not using themes, then it makes it very hard to adapt those designs. I made a note about Figma in here because Figma is one of the popular programs that these users, these designers use. So Figma is really just a mock-up studio that lets you um, develop app designs. They're not functional apps or anything, but it has a predefined set of objects. And this works very well with FileMaker. And you can link experiences together and play them in like a presentation mode. So you can kind of try clicking through the system before you build anything. Um, so Figma is the most popular one. There's been other ones in the past, like SwordSoft, and Pencil is another one I've used before. But basically, this is what replaces the cocktail napkin sketch of asking somebody to design what they need. And it's easy enough to use that we've found that some clients, um, when they come to us and they say, I want an invoicing system, and you're like, great, what do you want your invoice to look like? And they say, I don't know. And we will work with them, and we'll draw out something to say, oh, well, do you want your logo on it? Well, yeah, obviously I want my logo on it. Well, do you want the date of the invoice on it? Yeah, I want the date of the invoice. And it starts to, tools like this allow you to start piecing together those thoughts into something that you can use to then build the software very easily, rather than jumping in right away, trying to build something and then having to ask all those 50 questions one by one. That experience just becomes frustrating. So we encourage the use of designs, UI and UX designs, before we lift a finger. But most FileMaker developers, like I said, are pretty good about understanding, like, okay, I need to build an invoice detail. This is kind of what's on every invoice that's ever been built before. Line items, date of the invoice number, the company logo, the customer shipping address, that type of stuff. All right. So that's why using themes matter. There are questions in the chat. I'm probably going to save questions for the end, since we're already good 15 minutes in here. Definitely a quarter of the way through. So we'll save questions for the end. Hopefully this is all interesting so far. All right, so the next big major section is what should you know about themes? First thing you should know is what themes are supported and how you can up convert just from early versions. Now, I'm going to show you something here. I've got a sample file. I just used the meetings template here, and this has the universal touch theme. And when I'm in layout mode, it tells me what theme I'm using up here. And if I click the button right next to it, I can change themes. So these are all the themes that are in FileMaker today. This one's got a custom one called Minimalist Touch. There's Apex Blue, the one I was talking about before. That's a good primary FileMaker Pro layout. There's also this generation of themes that came out, I think, around FileMaker 16. Enlighten, Tranquil, Luminous is like a dark mode theme. Enlighten Print is a theme specifically for printing. And then there's the same themes in Touch Views. There's some basic themes that are, if you want to start with a blank theme, those are ones to use. And then there's two themes called Classic Redefined, which are modern versions of two of the older themes, Ocean and Sand, which is now Cool and Warm. And then there's a universal theme called Universal Touch. That's the basic starting template point for designing an iPad theme. So those are the themes that are currently compatible with FileMaker. But if I look in my FileMaker app itself, I'm looking inside of my FileMaker app resources folder to the themes folder. I've got a lot more themes in here, and some of these might be familiar. Beach, Bamboo. You can actually take a look in here. They have previews of what some of these themes look like. So this is the Bamboo theme. This is a circa FileMaker 11-ish theme, I believe. That's no longer used. It's got like this repeating background. This was the era of what Apple called skeuomorphic design, which was heavy on the gradients and the shadows and making things pop up off of the screen. But that's kind of no longer the case in Apple's design guide. So all of these, all these other themes are in here for one reason or another. It might be that I opened a file before that had it. It might be this is a glass theme. It's because it's got this glass kind of style look on it. This is a very Mac OS 10 OS X style design. So for whatever reason, one reason or another, you might wind up with more themes here that are that are here, but only the ones you normally see here are the supported themes, because all of the rest of them have been deprecated and they've since been removed from FileMaker. So when you upconvert, when you first come to a theme in here, if you go into layout mode and your theme says classic, that means you've probably converted from an earlier version of FileMaker that didn't use themes, and you have never applied a theme before. So when you apply a theme, it's going to change everything. It's going to change where objects are located on your page, kind of the alignment of everything. So there is a fair bit of work involved with changing your theme. I'm going to show you a little tip later on to apply a theme but keep a classic style. But for now, this is where you need to look to see, just from a basic standpoint, what themes you're using. All right, this one. So everybody, when I ask somebody if they know semantic UI, if nobody's heard of it before, like they might panic a little bit. But all semantic really means is that you're naming, when you're building your styles, you're naming things and how they make sense, human readable format. So I know if I choose this button right here, I'm going to choose, I think it's a button. Yeah, it's a button. Over here, it's going to tell me that I'm in my button styles. And then I have a number of these other styles here, and they're all human readable. So this is a default button. Maybe I want a round green button, and lo and behold, that is a round green button. So using a semantic naming convention, all that really means is that you want things to be understood that when you're looking at a list of all your button styles, you know kind of what that is. So I would not name a button style 4 because I have no idea what style 4 means. I would name it, bordered, dark mode, white text or something like that. But these ones that are used in Universal Touch are pretty consistent. Round pill means it's designed to be like slightly more narrow. Minimum means that it has minimum styling, which means there's no border or anything. It's just the text. And then you can see it starts to go into um, things that are style related. So highlight has blue, inverted has gray text. And if I look up here, inverted and highlight are share those same colors. So highlight is blue, inverted is a gray color here. Um, Border highlight, so the border of this is blue. And I might have border inverted where it's gray. So all semantic UI means is that as you name different things, here's my edit box styled, um, that you use naming conventions that make sense. So each one of these is going to have a different style. This is a shape, so I have different shape styles. All right, makes sense. That's all semantic UI is it's naming your things with human readable formats. All right. The next thing, if you want further reading, I don't assign homework in office hours, but I think every good developer has probably spent some time reading through this this book. It's not a book. It's a whole website now of um, uh, basically hundreds of thousands of hours of research. So everything Apple has ever done in terms of figuring things out about how to make things better to use in their apps through user interface and user experience designs is housed in the human interface guidelines. So what if you read through and you start using parts of the HIG, you can develop your own set of best practices, and you can develop very um, very good and very usable software. So I'll go in here to buttons as an example. So you can see this has a primary style and a secondary style. You can also see that the primary button is on the right and the secondary button is on the left. So this might apply to a form that you're building for somebody to fill out, and it might be on WebDirect, it might be in FM Better Forms, it might be you're developing a website on WordPress, or you're developing a FileMaker layout. Your primary button would be something like submit or save, and the secondary button would be something like cancel or delete. So this has a whole full couple of pages on how to style things, um, the content, different roles, um, like destructive, like if this is going to delete data in your system, it should be red or something like that. Where you would place those things. I mean, there is, you could spend days reading things in here, and it has it for all different types of things: menus, pop-up buttons, toolbars like our button bars and FileMaker, and a lot of these concepts are applicable to what we would use in good FileMaker design. So really, every year or so, I spend a couple hours going through the HIG and kind of seeing what's new, and then seeing how things are changing. Especially if you update iOS and then suddenly everything looks different, that means that the HIG has been updated, and you can kind of come through here. All right. And last, what you should know about using themes, obviously, how to copy and import or install themes. So there's a couple different places where you can install themes. So one place is just installing the theme on your computer itself. I'm going to show you the Mac. I don't have a PC to show you, but basically you go to your applications folder, you go to FileMaker Pro, right click, show package contents, contents, resources, scroll down to themes. And then these are all of your themes. All of your themes are a folder in here. If I want to create a new theme, all I have to do is duplicate one of these folders. So maybe I would make a copy of Universal Touch, and I would call it, Mainspring Universal Touch or something like that. And all that does is it takes a copy of the theme files and it adds it so that it's available in this menu here. Now, if I add a custom one, it will show up here under the custom group of themes. All right, for importing themes, so that's for the FileMaker application itself. If I add something in this folder, it will show up on all of my different files, doesn't matter. If I create a new file, that theme will be available for me to use. So that's a great thing. That's a great way to have something that's consistent, especially if you have a couple different developers on your team, and you're regularly building new files from scratch. So that's a great thing to do because it's going to be on my computer permanently now. I don't have to go to any other files. For importing themes, slightly different process. Importing a theme imports it both to your local computer, but also installs it in the file that you're using here. So that's really easy to do. All you have to do is have that other file, come into this change theme dialog, click import themes. And I found this theme online. It's called Angry Fruit Salad. It's from FileMaker, FileMakerThemes.com. So people also sell themes for FileMaker. You can just go and buy them, and they're already pre-styled. These ones, it's kind of just the same theme with a bunch of different style palettes, but it might save you some work if you find a nice color scheme that you like. So anyways, back here, you go to import, you open it, I'll say which theme out of that file do you want to import? I'll say Angry Fruit Salad and click yes. And you'll notice it puts it up here under customs. And then since I'm changing the theme, I'll go ahead and change the theme and see what happens. So you can see when I change the theme, some stuff is now no longer great. Like this text up here is now cut off. The tip I was going to save for later, but I'll show you now, is if you're still in layout mode and you've applied a new theme, if you go up under the edit menu, you'll see that you have an undo command here, and it's called undo style. Now, when I first apply a theme, it sets every object on here with the default style for that object. So this is now a default button. This is now a default portal. This is now a default tab control. So if I want to undo that and apply my custom styling back on to make that page look the same, I'll go ahead and I'll hit that undo. And then you'll see, oh, that went back to Universal Touch. It's supposed to go back to your styling, but it's not working with this custom theme. Let me see if I do it with another one. Let me try changing it to Luminous. I'm back. You know what? This might be a trick that only works for classic mode. So I'm going to say that maybe it's not a trick that I can show you in this file. Anyways, so copying and importing and installing themes, it's just that easy. Really, you just come in here, import themes, find the file that you want to import the theme from, import it, and then you're ready to go. So it's very easy to transfer complete themes between files as well. And now I should see, I guess Angry Fruit Salad does not show up here. So that is file specific. I forgot about that. Classic themes in here though. If I did want to, get that theme out though, I think all I have to do, well, I don't really remember how to get save a theme out as a standalone theme. I'll cover that in a minute though. There's actually a good reason why you don't usually want to mess around in this folder. All right, so we're going to skip ahead to the next bullet point, which was what are some examples of other theme libraries other developers use. And when I talk about other developers, I'm talking about web developers, like people that build JavaScript or PHP websites, or develop other applications that are not FileMaker related. So the one that we use primarily, and this is for our FM Better Forms projects, is a library called Tailwind. And what Tailwind is, it's a CSS library that makes anything we want to style. It makes it into a semantic style. So remember, semantic is just that human readable stuff. So we've got colors, a color palette that's included. So if I want to make my text, let's say I want to make my text red 700, I would call that text dash red dash 700, and it would um, color my text to be this red color right here. And I could customize what that red color is too. But we've got spacing, we've got theme presets for colors, we've got screen size presets. But what this lets us do is a number of different things. So let's go down to like font family. So you've got font sans, font serif, font mono. You've got font sizes. This will give you different text sizes here that you can deal with. If I want text dash 2XL, it's this very large size. So what this allows me to do is build very complex objects simply by knowing that semantic naming convention. So there's another library that's built on Tailwind we use. It's called Flowbyte. And Flowbyte comes with a bunch of prefabricated things that we can use. So this is like an accordion we can use, but something that's popular, something like an alert. So here's an alert box. So we might have this danger alert. And if we look at the code for that danger alert, it's not very hard to understand. P4 means that there's 4 points of padding around, margin bottom 4, text is small size, text is red, and 800. That's kind of like 80% red versus 100% or 10% red. Rounded large, that means that the corner of this is rounded in a large round. Background is red 50, so that's a very light red. Dark, so that's a dark mode thing. So if I change my screen here, let me go to display, and I'm going to switch from dark mode to light mode. But you will see, like, well, this page actually, you have to toggle dark mode here. But this page, this library allows you to do dark mode styling in line here. So when I'm in dark mode, it's going to be background gray 800, text red 400. So all this is learning BG for background, text for text, all of those different things. And when you learn semantic styling, you can start putting together these objects very fast. And this also comes with things like buttons. So there's our default and our alternative button. So if I want a submit button and a cancel button, I now have a place where I can go and get that. So there's other things too. There's like show animation. So this animation is not like an animated GIF file or anything. It's just a picture of that circle, and this CSS is spinning that circle around to animate it. So they have different animations built into Tailwind: ping, pulse, rotate, bounce, and then there's other stuff you can do as well. So there's effects you can do where you hover over something. There's a lot going on, much more than we have in FileMaker. So the other one that you've probably heard about before, if you've done any sort of web sub development, it's been around longer, but it's kind of come along. But it's also another semantic library. That's Bootstrap. So if you've heard about Bootstrap before, this is Bootstrap. It allows you to line things up in a grid. It's got typography, settings for heading 1. And it also comes with a number of these different things, these semantic classes. So this is a badge background secondary. So secondary background is that gray background. And you can see it actually auto resizes things too, depending on what its parent object is. So this allows you to build these things relatively easily in code. And then the last one of those to show you is Fluent UI, which I believe used to be called Material UI, but this is Microsoft's implementation. So all Microsoft applications are bound by this style guideline. So everything in here will look very familiar. So you have product colors in here. It will tell you what your product colors are. If I go to layout, it will show me things like this is how our grid system works. Grid systems are for responsive design. This means that as you drag and drop the screen, normally things will break down into their smaller size and automatically resize. FileMaker really doesn't have this concept yet because it only allows you to anchor objects in relation to really themselves in the layout. So I can't say that this portal's stretching is affected by this column over here. So I can't define this as 30%, and I can't define this as 66% to try to get a 1/3 and a 2/3. But on the web, that's been resolved for a while. It's laid out in a grid format, and usually grids are divided by 12 columns. So you can have a 12-column grid or a 6-column grid or 4 or 3 or 2 or 1. And you can change automatically depending on how big that screen size is and have everything move down automatically. So a lot of the time when we're in the web, we're writing one layout for all of our code rather than having a separate layout that we have to redirect somebody to for an iPhone layout or a tablet layout or a desktop layout. It's just all one layout, and it's the sizing is defined by this grid. So there's other stuff in here. Their typography settings, localization settings, other icons, elevation. Yeah. So again, you can go through all of these things, and it has their breakdowns of best practices and everything. So looking at this site versus the HIG from Apple, you can tell like this stuff very much looks like Windows apps because since I believe Windows 7, they've been building and rebuilding all their apps to have this. So even if I look at Outlook on a Mac, it has this style of design for those apps. All right. So getting down into the final category here, which is what are some tips that I have for using themes. So the first tip is that when you're creating a custom theme, you want to start with an existing theme. You don't want to take a theme from the ground up. I would recommend you don't use like the minimalist theme. I would say you want to use something like Apex Blue. So first thing I would do is I would make this Apex Blue. So now this is Apex Blue, and now I'm going to want to make any change on here. Maybe I'll change that to the same color. I didn't actually make a change there. I just changed it to the same thing it was. But I'll save the change to the current style. That means every default text box has now changed. And then when this button up here turns red for my theme, that means I've made a change to the Apex Blue theme. So I'm going to save this as a new theme now. And I'm going to call this, Mainspring Apex Blue. And now that has changed my theme to Mainspring Apex Blue. So now I can go to any other layout in my system and choose Mainspring Apex Blue. Okay, So that was actually like gray I chose, I guess. So maybe I didn't want to do that. So I will choose white again. I'll go up here and I'll save the change to the current style. And then that changes the theme again. I'll save the change to the theme. I won't save it as a new theme this time, but I'll save it to the theme. And what that does is every other layout that's using that theme now will automatically update with that style. So if I go back to this layout and then I turn this into blue as a background, same thing, I'm going to save. It changes all of my text boxes on all of my layouts to be that blue. So this is the time savings and the consistency I was talking about. This is a more severe example, but I wanted to stick out so you can see what actually happened there. So when you're creating your own custom layout or your own custom theme, this is what you want to do. You want to take an existing theme and you want to start with it because it's going to have all of these different styles on that for you. Now, the other thing you want to do is start creating your own object style development layout, because I'm going through right now in my production layouts and making the changes to background color and stuff. But it makes a lot more sense if I had one place where I would go to make those style changes. So if I open up that file, I downloaded the one with that angry fruit salad theme. Um, you'll see in here that this has an objects layout. And this has pretty much every object on it where I can go and style it. So in layout mode, I can see that I have, colors, I've got buttons. These correspond to these buttons over here. This naming convention is not really semantic because it has the colors are done by number, which I guess is okay, but you have to know what color 1, color 2, color 3 are. And then it kind of makes sense that this is button gradient, button outline, and button uh, color or button primary. And then you've got a couple other buttons too. But building this layout so that you can go and style all of the objects in one place is a great idea because you know, it doesn't have to be functional at all. You can just have every object on here. So what you can do is I can actually copy all this. I can go over to my other file and I can actually build one, and I would call this one like, I'll just call it dev theme or something like that. Let's create it as a form view. And then I can come in here and I know there were some more parts in here. There was a header in there. There was a footer in there. Probably. Yeah, so those are all the parts that I had, and now I can paste all those in here. And then something I can do in here, I'm not going to bother lining everything up, but if I look in here and I select all, then this style here says, whoa, you've got a bunch of styles that don't belong in this theme. They've been changed. So I can go under this little red button right here and say revert changes to style. And that's going to revert everything back. Now, what happened here is this button was called button primary 1, but I don't have that style in this theme. So since I don't have that style in this theme, then it reverts back to the default style for that object. So this is my button default style. So I might change this to faded gray, and I might change this to faded gray. And it takes, it takes an hour's worth of work to set this up, set this layout up. But if if you're building a new file, it's an hour well spent at the beginning of that time. All right, so now I have a big layout that I can use for that. So the other thing I could do would be to import one of these themes and then copy and paste it over, and then all of the styles would exist. All right. So wrapping up, applying a theme and retaining the classic styles. Like I mentioned, that's not, does this one have classic in it? Since Classic isn't here anymore, it's not very easy to do, but it would be the type of thing where what I just did here, where if I paste everything in, let me try pasting everything in again and delete everything. And if I paste it again, hit Z, no, it just undoes it. So this behavior has changed, unfortunately. Um, Undo styling. It used to be when you undo the style, it reverts back and goes back to whatever style you pasted in here. But let me try changing it and then undo style. All right, so it worked that time. I don't know if that makes sense to you, but what I basically did was I applied a different theme. So let me apply the luminous theme here. And when I apply that theme, it restyles everything back to default. But if I want to undo that so that I can preserve the colors and the changes that I had, I go under edit and I hit undo, and it undoes that back to the previous style there. Now, what I had said before as a warning, like this is now a modified version of this. It has all of these settings that are custom settings. So you have to worry about compatibility and performance and consistency. Now that this object is customized, if I change the style for the default button for the Luminous theme, this button, since it's been customized, will not change. Only the ones that have the default style untouched, uncustomized will change. Because as soon as you customize something, FileMaker is not going to overwrite that. So you can tell if something's been customized because all you do is you click on the object and this little circle over here is a red circle. That means it's been changed. All right. That brings us to tip of the day and Q&A. So tip of the day is going to be, how do I find out? It's going back into, this is kind of breaking into FileMaker. You're not really hacking it, so to speak, but remember how before I showed you how that you could get into the themes layout here. Let's go take a look at Bamboo because I don't care about that. So if you really want to know what a theme looks like, I mean, in a code representation, then you can take this folder and drag it into an editor like, yes, I trust the author, like Visual Studio, and you'll see I have this folder in here now, and I'm going to have one called bamboo.css. And this is CSS code. So everything you see in here is CSS coding. So I see leading subsummary, text box, self. The color is this green color right here. And the FileMaker table background color or trailing grand summary style is going to have this border image source is this image Bamboo Grand. And I can look at that over here. And there's that border style right there. So you can actually copy and paste a theme, and then you can go in and actually edit this CSS to customize it in your own way. You have to be a little bit careful though, because FileMaker doesn't have all of this is CSS 3.0. It doesn't have everything here. So I might not be able to use like, there's some CSS for things like animation, like I was showing you. So animate spin or something like that. If I put that in here, FileMaker is probably not going to draw that. And it might actually break things in FileMaker to where your object just shows up as a black box. So you want to be careful modifying these themes, but if you really feel like you want to hack into some things to change it, then this is how you do it. You go in here and you copy your own folder. Always work in a copy. Obviously, if you mess something up, it's very easy to reinstall FileMaker. Especially on Mac now, you just drop it into your applications folder and it's installed, and that restores things back to their previous version. But if you're going to mess around in here, always copy the folder. The other thing is for it to show up in your list in FileMaker, you might have to restart FileMaker for it to recognize that theme. All right. Marshall, what do we got in the way of questions?
Uh,
I don't have the chat.
It's funny when you said, "Hey, can we save questions to the end?" You pretty much covered a lot of this stuff. Tony, who dropped off, was asking about, do you have specific style names? I think you addressed that. I don't know. If you're developing for yourself, make it for yourself. If you're developing for others, to where other developers might come in, I would say you want to be a little bit more on the descriptive side than not.
I just want something to be human readable. So
Yeah.
like I mentioned, if I come in here and this says accent button 1,
Yeah.
I'll know that's accent button 1. I don't really know what the difference between 1 and 2 is here. So that we're debating the semantics about semantic.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
but I would call this button blue, solid or something like that, white text or something like that. So I like it so it's very easy, so I can go to the list and choose a style. But it's very easy also for you to just go through a very long list of styles and choose the one, and then you arrive at the one that looks right and you use that. It's only a couple seconds worth of difference. The concern is that if I win the lottery tomorrow and suddenly I'm not at work and somebody has to pick up my place, are they going to be able to understand what these buttons mean, or more importantly, what they're for? And that goes back into using something like Tailwind or the human interface guidelines, where you have a primary button and a secondary button. And what's the difference between a primary and a secondary button? All right.
Okay. On existing solution, is there a way to find a modified style like a red triangle object easier, even using something like FM perception? So if you've got a big, can you go the other way? Can you click on a style and have it tell you every layout where that style is used?
So, I mean, it's either a 1 or a 0. Either that you're going to know what style is applied to an object. So if I'm sorry, not say it, that next one down. Let's go into FM perception. Let's just very quickly do summary on the desktop. These aren't very big files, so that's already done. So if I look at my summary, let's go to office hours, and I'm going to go to themes. Mainspring Apex Blue, custom styles. So I have two categories here under FM perception. I have default styles, which are all the default styles that come with the theme, the one that I copied, and then I have custom styles. And since I customized this in here, this one is a custom style. So it's going to kind of tell me, it's going to tell me which thing from the original Apex Blue theme has been custom styled, but it's not going to tell me layout object count. I want to find, well, I guess I don't have one. It's not going to be super helpful. The way I would do that would be to come in here, go to here, and see if anything has been changed at all. So if anything has been changed to this theme at all, this top button to the theme will show as a red icon. And that way you'll know that something on this layout has been changed or customized. And
Gotcha.
that's just kind of a matter of finding it. But it's better to just have good development practices of always using a theme object. And if that theme object doesn't exist, go back to your layout that you're using to develop the theme, make that object that you need, save it to the theme so your theme has it, then go back to the layout you're working on and apply that style. And then that way you're always dealing with objects that you have styles for. There's always going to be, a couple things outlying that you have to customize. That's going to be a little different, but you're looking for consistency, and consistency is, there's a percentage that makes something consistent. I think it's somewhere around 70%. So if 70% of all the objects in your system are consistent, it's a pretty consistent file.
Okay, and Austin chimed in and said that the report card does have a section for local styles, so that might be helpful.
Yeah, so if we go back to report card, should be fast on this, but yeah, there's, well, it's in there somewhere, but yeah.
Right. That's
Sure.
the end. Okay. Well, that is pretty much it. We're at time, so
Yeah.
you came in, with the plane at the perfect angle and descent, and the wheels just went like, we like to see. So, I've always said, if you've got ideas for other office hours, please send them to answers@gomainspring.com. But other than that, thanks so much, Mike. This was really great. Renee will get the recording out to everybody. She said tomorrow, so
And
we'll.
I'll pop this in the, I'll pop the whole checklist in the chat window here so everybody has it.
Okay, awesome. Well, hey, thanks for coming, everybody, and we will see you next month. Thanks, Mike. Great job.
So,
Later.